I'm Matt Wade from The Detail, and you're watching So Booking Cool.
So fucking, so fucking, so fucking cool.
It's so motherfucking cool to listen to So Fucking Cool.
For a man whose stature as a pop icon of entertainment meant that he was the most photographed, watched, recorded, probed and examined individual to have ever existed, it is ironic that so much of Michael Jackson's life to this day is debated and shrouded in mystery. A polarizing figure, Michael Jackson's star power garnered him countless avid fans around the world and across generations. Yet, controversy and his often misunderstood complexities led many to speculate and question his enduring status. What is undeniable, though, is how Michael Jackson's trailblazing feats during his lifetime continue to influence the music, performance, business practices, and celebrity of today.
Welcome to So Booking Cool, it's Jewel B. Today's guest is no stranger to creating. For 6 years, he started, designed, and developed the international fashion label Shade London, which sold to the likes of ASOS and Topshop, and garnered famous fans, including Rihanna, Ariana Grande, Kylie Jenner, and Ellie Goulding. Now, since 2019, he merged his love for the 80s and his film studies degree into The Detail, also known as the Michael Jackson Documentary Channel on YouTube, which features hundreds of videos that aim to understand the man, the music, and the magic behind the late great King of Pop. To date, the channel has been viewed more than 100 million times. Here with us today in this episode is entrepreneur and The Detail's creator, Matt Wade. Stay tuned for our conversation only on So Booking Cool.
Hello.
Hi, Matt. Welcome. Something that I want to say is that, and I know a lot of people can probably relate to this, is that what's great about your channel, aside from the work that you put into it, is that I know for many Michael Jackson fans, the conversation might be, what era did you grow up in of Michael Jackson's career? And what your channel does is you're able to take us to a time that we either don't know about or we forgot about or we're just less familiar with.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, it's weird because literally at the moment I'm just editing a year in review, which is like one of my formats that I do, where it kind of takes a chronological view of Michael Jackson's life of any particular year. So I'm up to like 1997, and I partly do it for the audience, but I also do it for myself because sometimes you forget about when things happened in chronological order and what was kind of happening during that time and what the kind of landscape was. So definitely for people who, if they became a fan, let's say in the mid 90s and they weren't really there for the 80s, then like they get a kind of perspective on Michael Jackson at any given point. And I love that. I have a big thing about like time travel and feeling like I've been transported to a different time and place. So I love kind of like creating that for myself, but also for my audience as well.
Yes. Now, did your channel start after a visit to New York City at the Wendy Williams show?
Yeah, so I see you watching my videos.
Oh,
yeah. No, it wasn't like I was at the Wendy Williams show and I was like, right, I'm gonna create a Michael Jackson channel. But it was quite interesting that I was there when Leaving Neverland came out, and I went to The View and Wendy Williams, which I'd watched for like years. Just as a voyeur into like TV production in America and stuff. And that was the hot topic because it was the beginning of March 2019. And I kind of came back, and within about 6 weeks I'd started the channel. Initially the channel wasn't going to be just Michael Jackson. It was going to be about like pop icons from like the 80s and 90s. So whether that was like Madonna or Cher or George Michael or Mariah Carey or whoever it could be, because I really wanted to bring to light those kind of like backstage stories and like forgotten drama and gossip and stuff of like that period, which I was always kind of like really fascinated, when compared to like modern day celebrities and like Kardashians and whatever modern day rappers and athletes and stuff that people talk about today. So yeah, and obviously because Leaving Neverland had just come out, I watched it, and he was kind of front of mind at the time. And the first video I ever did was how much plastic surgery did Michael Jackson actually have, and try and create content that was unique, that I was kind of looking for, but I didn't really see out there on YouTube, on the internet. And then from that video, this is how kind of YouTubers work: create one video, inspires another video and another video, and then it kind of just became like 5 or 6 Michael Jackson videos. And I kept saying to myself, like, right, I'm gonna have to do like, and I did do a couple like Prince videos and a Madonna video and a Whitney video, but every time I put out different content that wasn't Michael Jackson, I just got comments saying, can you just stick to Michael Jackson? So I pretty much quite early on sort of attracted this base of Michael Jackson fans and enthusiasts and people who are just interested in his life and career. And I kind of decided, right, I'm just gonna like build upon that. So yeah, go all niche, all out on the niche.
Yeah, with you doing videos that were also on those other like pop legends, like you mentioned, Prince, Madonna, and Whitney Houston, why do you think there was more of a demand for Michael Jackson content?
I think his life is that's actually a really good question. I think there's definitely, his life is just shrouded in mystery, and I think there's a lot of people, no matter who you are, whether you're like a fan or not, everyone always has an opinion about Michael Jackson, and there's always questions to be asked. If I said, oh, I do, videos about Whitney Houston, people would just, I don't know, obviously there's like drama and there's mystery around her life as well, about how things went down in her life, because it was sort of very up and down, kind of like tragedy as well as huge successes as well. But I think in terms of pretty much every single aspect of Michael Jackson's life, there's questions and people don't really know what to make exactly 100%. I don't think anyone has a conclusive like, right, he fits into this pigeonhole, so that's great, I understand who he is and exactly what that was all about. I think even mega fans or people who really, even myself, who have kind of dedicated a lot of time in investigating his life and understanding him better, don't really have a conclusive image of him and understand his reasoning and actions all the time. So I think that's why, 'cause it's just like this enduring curiosity that people have about him. And it's kind of a bit of a snowball effect. Like once you kind of, get your sort of your teeth into it a little bit, you'll kind of keep going. And then, luckily I've been at this for a couple of years now, so I have like a lot of content people could be benefiting from once they do, oh, okay, so plastic surgery, what about, currently at the moment I have a video going viral at the moment about his speaking voice, and that he actually had a lower speaking voice and than what he portrayed to the public, which has been a kind of revelation for a lot of people.
Yes, that was another great video. Not to give it away. Yeah, no problem, Matt. His real voice would like come out whenever he was speaking about business, for example, right? That's something that I learned.
I think it really just demonstrates how he had this very like curated, very thought out, planned public image, and that who he was, given the people that he was with, could change dramatically, and that this kind of this airy, whispery, kind of high-pitched voice that people kind of think of him in the kind of few interviews that he did throughout his lifetime was actually somewhat constructed like a lot of people's image and lives and how they want to be perceived. He kind of used every crown in the box in terms of like cultivating his own public image. So yeah.
Where would you say you get a lot of your information from? Because as anybody will see when they watch the detail, it is like very detailed and in depth and everything.
So I mean, it's largely, I do have an archive newspaper sort of subscription where it goes back, well, literally to like 1850 or something, but
Wow.
I stick to the 80s and 90s. But it has like so many articles from all that time, and you just put in search terms, you know, if I put Michael Jackson voice from 1993, and then it will just pick out words that come up, you know, near each other, which is like Michael Jackson voice. And then I research obviously online articles, and just like books. And I think also once you kind of, you know, you do a lot of research and you do a lot of reading into these subjects, that you kind of retain a certain amount of information. So I'm just thinking like there's certain information which I'm just like, oh, okay, I can put that in, like, because I read that in that book, or I've referenced that in somewhere else. So a lot of it's like just stuff that I know as well, like having done this for like a few years now.
Okay. Yeah, and speaking of books, Ola Ray, and for anybody who's watching who doesn't know, Ola Ray famously starred in the Thriller short film. She just released a book, and obviously there have been many people who have been like connected to Michael Jackson who have written books. Have you ever read any of those books, and what are your thoughts on those releases, if you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I've really just stuck to, obviously I've read Michael Jackson's biography or autobiography, and I stick to like his family. I've read Jermaine's book, as well as LaToya's. Bit of a hint, I've got a LaToya documentary series coming up, so I've read both her books. And yeah, I mean, I've got literally underneath this computer, I've got the King of Style, Michael Bush.
Michael Bush.
Who was Michael Jackson's longtime sort of costume outfit maker. So yeah, those are the ones that I've done. I haven't really gone more to. I did actually read Tatiana Thompson's autobiography about herself, but also including Michael Jackson, who was the video girl in The Way You Make Me Feel. And she says that there was some kind of romantic relationship between her and Michael Jackson. So I always find those things kind of interesting. And I always have this perspective of my channel as well. It's I put in certain information, and people are like, well, how do you know if that's 100% true? And how do you kind of you know, sift out stuff that could be just like speculation or tabloid fodder and that type of stuff. And obviously, I think some things which, I mean, there's a lot of things I read about Michael Jackson which is like completely preposterous, and I think you can kind of sense from the sources, from you know, particular publications here in the UK, like anything from the Mirror, I'm just like, none of it's sort of newsworthy for me. But also, I don't mind putting certain things that might sound really outrageous. I just usually just put in, I say, Thingy said this, which is true. Like if someone has said it, then that is what they've said. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And I always think of my audience is not, you know, vacuous teenagers who have no like mind of their own. Everyone's very kind of like has their own opinion, and they can sort of take everything which I say with like a pinch of salt, even though I do try and have like an amount of like credibility and not have it just become like a cesspit of like tabloid crap that isn't, you know, has no like you know, truth to it at all.
Matt, you know, I'm so curious, and I'm sure others are too who follow you and what you do. What were your hobbies and interests as a youth?
When I was younger, what, like a teenager?
Both.
I guess, I mean, when I was younger, I used to love like film and music, used to listen to a lot of Michael Jackson, used to like painting, used to like watching films, used to love horror films from like the 80s and 90s as well. I don't know, yeah, just quite like creative, but also I have got like an academic background as well. I did film studies at university, which I used to think was like kind of a useless degree. Because afterwards I went into, I had a fashion label, which I sort of did for 6 years. Used to sell on ASOS and Topshop and those different retailers. So because I went the fashion route, I thought, oh, like the film wasn't really relevant. But actually thinking about it now, it's very similar. Like what I did at university is essentially what I do now. I have to research a particular topic, have to write essays about it, have a deadline because I have to create a video every week, and then I get marks at the end by looking at what people's comments and what the views and stuff are. So I'm pretty much at university still. So yeah, I did have some kind of aspirations when I was at university of like working in media in some way, or being a filmmaker, or working on a set or something, and kind of am, but like it's all kind of my own doing, really.
You're definitely doing it. Like you're a professional, and it comes across. I was like, wow, clearly he knows what he's doing. Like I really was curious about your training and everything, and knowing that you have like the film studies background, it really shows. Yeah.
Well, the film studies degree is actually just academic. So all of the editing,
right,
stuff, it's all just self-taught, which you could probably tell if you look at my first videos I did on my channel. They're like nowhere like, nothing like what I produce now. So you can kind of see that improvement from there. But in terms of the doing the research and the writing, all that type of stuff, that's all pretty much my university education.
And you also have always enjoyed artists from the 80s, right? Or are you also a fan of like some modern artists as well?
I think Michael Jackson was the first one I probably listened to all his albums, when I was a kid, obviously I liked, the boy bands and girl bands at the time, in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I listened to like an album here and there, but I think Michael Jackson was the first one when I was about 12 or 13, where I actually look back at his catalogue and I listened to every single song, and I downloaded them and put them on my little MP3 player and walked to school listening to them. So I would say it was probably Michael Jackson, a lot of just kind of modern music at that time. But then as I got into my later teens, I sort of gained more of an interest in more like 80s artists. And I think that's really to do with streaming and stuff and YouTube. You get to discover so much more. When in the past it was so much you would go to your local CD record store or whatever, and you'd buy the single at the time. And if you were going to download a song illegally on the internet, then you'd have to actually know the song before, you had to type it in. There was no discovering new music really like you do today.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of options too, for any sound that somebody might be interested in. There's a ton there, right?
And music now is so timeless and evergreen. You could be just as crazy about a musician that died 50 years ago, and it's just as accessible as the latest hits that are in the charts. So we have so many niche music opportunities to discover music that is from decades ago, which I think is really interesting and really such a positive now versus in the past.
Absolutely. What is your advice for anybody that does want to start a documentary channel for one artist, to anybody watching?
Well, I think what I do, I haven't really seen anyone else do kind of a similar thing to what I've done. I didn't even know you could do something like what I do. So, because originally I was a bit nervous when I first did it, because I was I'm going to run out of content. Eventually I'm going to run out of things to say. But I think, but then I just discovered there's always more stuff to talk about, and I'm always discovering new things about him and interesting. And I think the thing that's interesting about Michael Jackson is that he's kind of at the center of celebrity and music and, I don't know, pop culture in general. So you could really, sometimes I watch a documentary and I'm like, wow, I found that really interesting. I kind of related to Michael Jackson and researched something to do relating to it. And there's been a couple opportunities. I'm just thinking, I really got into Janet Jackson. I was like, right, I'm going to do a Michael and Janet Jackson series and do it from the perspective of their relationship. Which I think is really unique and I haven't seen before. But I think in terms of YouTube, one thing I would recommend is whatever you're creating, just try and think, is, if I wasn't creating this, would I be watching this? Like, if I wasn't creating my channel, I would be watching every single week. I know I would. Like, and also try not, you know, I think lean into those niches. I think lean into those kind of topics which are under like resource, like there aren't like many people talking about what you're talking about, but you know you're really interested in it, and there's definitely going to be people out there who are interested in it as well. And also, like, one thing is also just to start and just see where you go from there, because you might have one idea of like, right, this is what my channel is going to be like. I'm going to do this type of video, and I'm going to do this type of video every single week, and then I want to do that. I think really just start and just have one idea for one video, and then take it from there, see what audience you attract, and just kind of like listen to your audience and what they're responding to. Because I think often, I used to work in social media as well. I used to be a social media manager. So I had to speak to like clients and stuff about this. I think often with social media and often with YouTube and creators, people always talk about what they want to create, always about the message they're trying to give across. And I think that's why some Michael Jackson channels kind of go a bit array. Is that even a word? Like away?
An array?
Like, well, kind of get a bit sidetracked from actually investigating an issue in an unbiased way, because they have their own motivations. They want to portray Michael Jackson as in a particular way. You know, they have this kind of like, you know, often with Michael Jackson fans, it's a big like justice for Michael thing, and I want to prove that this is right, and this was him, and this was, when people don't really want to be told, they just want to know the facts and come to their own conclusion. So I think it's really just thinking about what the audience wants, what you would want as an audience member, rather than what your own motivations behind that content is.
Yes, Matt. So well said. And, you know, when you watch the detail, you do make it clear that it's not a fan channel. You know, you obviously like are a fan, but you make it known that this is not a fan channel. And why was that important for you to put that disclaimer out?
Well, I mean, in my comments, I get it all the time. Like literally every single day, I get like the most common like comment that I get in this vein is kind of, you used to create great content, but I'm getting the feeling now that you are actually a hater, and actually you're disguised as a fan, but you're not. And it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of a limiting like title to put on yourself, to be like, well, this is a fan page, this is a fan channel, this is what, because everyone's going to tell you, well, a fan wouldn't do this and a fan wouldn't do that. So it's not a fan channel. It's an investigative journalistic channel. We go into like the good and bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly about Michael Jackson, and it's really just portraying him and his life in the most honest, authentic way that we can. And some people get annoyed, like even if I put up an article and they call him like Wacko Jacko in it, and they're like, I can't believe you put up this article, it is so disgusting to Michael Jackson. But I'm like, that is the reality he lived with. Like, I'm not gonna like whitewash over it and just be like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna ignore and we're just gonna show all the glory moments of his life. I think it's really important to show the kind of real dichotomy in his life, that like he had this glory and this fandom and this kind of like huge adulation, and then also he had this huge like battle they had with the press and speculations and criticism and people constantly doubting him all the time. That you know, that was his reality, and I want to portray that. So I don't know, and sometimes people get offended thinking that certain things that I say is like a criticism. Like if I said that Michael Jackson you know, put on a voice or something when he was publicly speaking, or he heightened his voice consciously or unconsciously, it's not really an insult. I don't think of it as an insult. It just is, you know. When people go, well, who cares? Why are you criticizing him? Why are you doing? I'm kind of like, I'm not criticizing. I'm just kind of talking very matter of fact about these things. it's mainly, you know, the way I describe my channel is that it's reading between the headlines. We're not just going through Michael Jackson was born in 1958. You know, it's expert level Michael Jackson content. I presume everyone who's watching has some knowledge about Michael Jackson, knows who he is, knows his music, knows his backstory, and they really just want to have a real kind of like expert level type investigative approach to his life in whatever topic I'm talking about in that video.
Do you have plans to grow your channel in a certain way in terms of like content, or keeping it in the documentarian space?
I mean, I would like to do more kind of feature-length documentaries. So I did like Dangerous 30 last November for the 30th anniversary of the Dangerous album, which was like a multi-video series, and then it cultivated into like a feature-length documentary. And the same with the Janet and Michael Jackson documentary, which was a similar format. So I would like to do more of those types of videos, and also just, I mean, my main goal and my main kind of like dream really is to create like a feature-length documentary and have it on, you know, outside of YouTube. So that's kind of the plan. But in terms of actual content that I put on YouTube, I'm happy with the documentary style. I'm not really interested, you know, I've done like a lo-fi mix of Michael Jackson music, which was just me kind of having fun, and people ask for more of those because they like them, but I'm not like a music, you know, mixer. I don't make music. I kind of feel like I should, like my skills are best doing what I'm doing at the moment, and there's, again, plenty to talk about, and there's plenty to keep going for years to come. And what's interesting is that, like, I still find it fascinating. Like, I still find it really interesting, and I read articles online, and I'm still like, oh, there's another video there, or maybe I should investigate that. You know, sometimes I read people's comments and they talk about stuff, and I'm like, well, maybe I should do a video about that, because that seems to be something that people are really interested in, or that's a bit of a kind of gray area that, you know, people want more clarity on. So yeah.
Is there any topic that you would ever shy away from when it comes to Michael Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, the main one is obviously the allegations.
Okay.
So, and the main reason for that is anything to do with that subject matter, you're not going to get monetized at all. So there's just no point in me creating that content, because I'm essentially doing it for free. But also, when I could be spending it doing stuff that actually, you know, makes money, that I can actually maintain my channel, you know, like, so whenever anyone, like, even just in my personal life, asks me like, oh, what do you think about the allegations? I always just say, well, I don't talk about that, because you can't talk about that stuff on YouTube. But also, I think there's so much information on YouTube. If someone wanted to investigate that subject matter, there's so many videos about it. And I kind of almost kind of sick and tired of those types of documentaries, and everything about Michael Jackson being about the allegations, being about, you know, the last years of his life, where it's, you know, a lot of kind of prescription drug, you know, issues, and, or, you know, pretty much like him at his absolute worst. Those are things which I'm not really that interested in. I kind of like staying in and focusing on, even though like it's not exclusively, but you know, when an era when Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson, you know, when he was at his peak, when he was the world's, you know, biggest superstar. That's an era which I find more fascinating, and I think a lot of people out there are more interested in than, you know, the kind of grim realities of like how his life ended and like the darkest moments of his life.
Matt, you did mention monetization. I know at some point the detail went through something surrounding monetization, right?
Yeah.
Looking back, what would you say are your biggest takeaways from that experience, and what advice can you give other creators?
Well, that was just an issue with YouTube. Pretty much it was, I got demonetized earlier this year for reused content. which is YouTube speak for pretty much them trying to stop creators taking content that is already on YouTube or on the internet, putting it on YouTube and then just monetizing it. So essentially people who are creators haven't put a creative influence over the content that they're putting on their channel, which is obviously not what I do. I've never just like reposted like content that I found on, you know, YouTube or anywhere else and tried to make money out of it. But obviously I don't film my own content. Largely it's just, you know, I'm an editor. I find content from different sources and then I kind of put it together with, you know, my own kind of narration over it. But with the year in review videos, those don't have a narration. So they have more of an argument to say, oh, well, you just took a couple clips from YouTube and then you've just put them in a video and now you're making money off it. That's not allowed. So I think there was a bit of confusion on their side, and I've spoken to a lot of creators since, and even though it's quite simple and it's quite obvious, if a person actually looks at your channel, which they're meant to do in an appeal, sometimes you just get overlooked, and it just, I mean, I was demonetized for 5 weeks, and it was a really fun time because I was moving at the time I just bought a house, so it's like the first house I've ever bought.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I just exchanged on the contracts, like, right, nowhere I can like, you know, get out of this now. And the next day I got demonetized. So I was like moving and spending loads of money and like, yeah, it was a bit, but it was really good to get it all back. And yeah, and I guess like, I mean, my advice for all creators is really, obviously don't do the reused content. Don't just take content that's already online. I don't know how these channels make any money who do like top 10 videos or like clips that they find on TikTok and stuff and they just put it on YouTube. I suspect a lot of them get demonetized as well. But also, I mean, just the nature of YouTube, don't have it be your sole source of income, or if it is, make sure you've got a good amount of savings behind you in order to make sure that you can ride out these kind of storms if and when they do happen, because it's not always reliable. And I have had people contact me saying like, well, you know, I have no money to pay for my rent or whatever, and you know, this is all my income. And it's like, it shouldn't really though. Like, you know, it's kind of, it's fickle, you know, sometimes it can be fickle. I mean, I've been doing it for 3 years and this is the first time I've ever had an issue. I think in a normal job situation, if someone's employing you, I think that's pretty normal. You know, sometimes people out of the blue get made redundant and they have to look for work or whatever. So I don't see it as any different. And I kind of do actually see myself now as more being an employee of Google and YouTube, rather than, you know, having my own business and being an independent creator. It's kind of, you're kind of working, you know, you're working with them in order to create the best type of content. And, you know, it has its pros and its cons. Obviously, it's a great platform. But yeah, you have to play by those rules, I guess.
What keeps you motivated, aside from your interest in new discoveries of Michael Jackson and anything that you come across and you're like, what's the Michael Jackson angle for this? What keeps you motivated?
You know, I'm a really like visual person, and I'm really like, I don't know, it feels like everything that I've ever done has kind of, there's always been this like final outcome that I can look back on and be like, wow, I did that, that's really cool. You know, it's not like I'm an accountant and I'm like looking over spreadsheets going, wow, those numbers, they look really amazing. Like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of, I kind of like the idea that that the content that I create is like almost forever. Like the video that I've been editing today, like that's going to live on the internet for years to come, and it's going to be, you know, something that people can enjoy, like long after I might have forgotten about it, be like, oh yeah, I made that like all those years ago. So I find that really motivating, but also I find that kind of like, I want to make sure that I do the best job that I can. Like every video that I do, I'm kind of like, well, I'm probably not going to make another one that's going to tell this story. So I probably should, you know, put a lot of time and energy in making sure that I do it in the best way possible. And that is the best cohesive story with all the elements that you want to have in it, because, you know, this is going to be here for a long time and lots of people's only kind of resource on this particular subject matter, which they can easily access, is probably going to be this video. So I want to do it properly. So yeah, and I guess it is it is the comments and people's own kind of appreciation and love for the channel as well. I mean, I get a good amount of hate. It's weird. I don't get really much hate for Michael, which I thought when I started it would be very 50-50. I would say about 95% positive stuff about Michael on the internet. But yeah, and I get some negative about my channel, but then I get loads of amazing comments of people just like, oh my God, I've been watching your channel nonstop for days. It's so entertaining. I've learned so much. Thank you so much for putting all your hard work into this. This is, you should win awards. You're amazing. So those are just like lovely things to hear. And I never kind of try and lose sight of that being like a real person. It's, and a real experience, and like someone sitting there on their phone or on their computer, like typing something, saying that they really appreciate what I do. So yeah, that kind of keeps me motivated a lot as well.
You talked about reception from the public and the detail supporters. What about like family, friends, whomever? Do they know about the detail and the work that you do, and what do they think about it, if so?
What, my friends and family?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that you're really into, I guess you can't really put it upon your friends and family and expect them to be like, oh, have you seen my video this week? Like, oh, wasn't it a good one? I think my mum, is probably the only one who regularly watches the channel, but even that is kind of like, maybe, not every week. She mostly just looks at you said 100 million views. She actually told me it was 100 million views because she checks. She does, I don't know, she's very nosy and she hasn't got insight into the analytics. So that's the only thing she can look at to see how things are going.
Okay.
So yeah, her interest is more like how many views it has, but she's also kind of interested in the subject matter as well. But yeah, I think friends and family are obviously really happy for me. I think it's it's always an interesting thing to say what you do, and people are like, oh, okay, you're a YouTuber, are you famous? I'm like, well, no, I don't appear on the videos. I'm like, okay, what's it about? And you're like, oh, it's about music, because then you often at the family barbecue you get discussion about Michael Jackson that becomes very I don't know, it becomes very erratic and all over the place. So yeah, that's but I'm also proud of what I do. I think I think what I do is really interesting. I love my job, so I don't mind talking about it. And yeah, people are happy for me.
Matt from The Detail. Matt, do you want us to just call you Matt or full name? It's up to you.
Matt Wade.
Matt Wade from The Detail. Thank you so much for coming on So Booking Cool. It was a pleasure. And
you're a great interviewer.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I like what I do, and I have been doing this for a few years, but I feel like I'm just, getting started in a sense. Do you ever feel like that you're just getting started, even though you've been doing this for a couple of years now? Yeah,
I mean, well, obviously there's YouTube channels out there where they're 10 years old or 12 years old, and they've got videos which have millions of views from 7 years ago and stuff. And I guess compared to me, I'm just really a baby at it. But I'm always trying to improve my editing skills and trying to find new footage and new resources and stuff. So yeah, there's always so much more you can take it. So yeah, I think it's good to feel like that. To always feel like you're innovating and things are new and you're learning, and it's not just kind of I'm a pro and I know what I'm doing and same old every weekend or whatever.
Yes. So people can follow The Detail by visiting social media. Tell us exactly what they are and how people can keep up with you and The Detail.
Yeah, so if you just type into YouTube The Detail, you'll get us. Probably if you look up anything Michael Jackson, we'll probably have a video popping up as well. But we're on Instagram and TikTok as well, and on Facebook under The Detail NJ. So that's pretty easy for people.
just really quickly, what are some of your favorite books that you read? Because you have read, Michael Jackson books. Do you have a favorite one?
I love the King of Style, Michael Bush book. It just has amazing images and just great insight into like his, sort of most iconic videos and performances. And I like those types of books where you get, the images as well as some insight as well.
Yes, doesn't he? What a great book. Shout out to Michael Bush. It was we've had him on here before. It was so great to talk to him. Yeah, I wonder if he'll do a
videos based on his book. I did one and it did really well, but I need to do more.
Yeah, so the wonderful Matt Wade would love to speak with you again in the future. And thank you so much to all the supporters and viewers and listeners. Until next time, so booking cool.
Okay, thank you. Bye.